Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started?
He's ready. Good.
We'll go ahead and get started now. The November 28th, 2023 meeting of the Transportation Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Burgess. Mr. Burgess is present. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby is present. Mr. Frazier. Mr. Frazier is present. Ms. Hasman. Ms. Hasman is present. Mr. Keller. Mr. Keller is present. Chair Morris.
Here.
Chair Morris is present. Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith is present.
Is there anyone signed up for the public forum?
There is not.
Is there anyone present who is not signed up to speak who would like to address the committee at this time? Okay, then moving on, I'd like to introduce Robert Franklin, Chief Financial Officer of Monroe County, who is here to present the 2023 proposed Monroe County budget as it pertains to the Transportation Committee. We will have a question and answer period following the presentation. Mr. Franklin.
This should be a relatively brief presentation. Only have 3 slides. This is one of them. The Transportation Committee is all about Monroe County's Department of Transportation. So, and I'm sorry, I still have a piece of candy in my mouth. Budgeted transportation expenses are almost 100% entirely within the County Department of Transportation. Next slide shows you where the other 0.1% is. Overall, DOT's proposed appropriations for next year's budget are almost $5 million lower than the adopted appropriations for 2023. But no, DOT is not cutting its services. There's just a big swing in debt causing most of that change. Specifically, the adopted budget for next year, the adopted budget for this year, 2023, and specifically within the Division of Traffic Signal Engineering and Operations, included just over $6.1 million for the full redemption of a bond anticipation note. It was a one-time item that dramatically inflated the 23 budget. So if you exclude that item from the comparison, then DOT's proposed budget would actually increase by $1.2 million. So there are some bigger changes going on in DOT's proposed budget, and I'm just going to hit a few of the highlights. First, let me say that payroll and benefits across the department are increasing by about $560,000. It's not quite half the overall increase. Also adds 1.5 FTEs. Another significant increase you'll find in DOT can be found in the Division of Traffic Operations and Permits. Second line down there. You'll see costs for crosswalk markings, pavement markings, and highway lighting all increasing. Those are functions of both market price increases and the fact that we're taking on work for crosswalks previously performed by towns. As you can see on this particular line, the total appropriations for that particular division are lower. That's because about $1.9 million in debt service accounted for in traffic operations permits has been fully paid off this year. 2 notable cost increases can be found in the Division of Highway and Bridge Operations. That's the third line on here. One of those items is higher, about $530,000. Cost of snow and ice removal contracts that we have with our towns. Those contracts are formula driven based on the number of lane miles in that town and account for the cost of different components, including town labor, materials, and equipment. It also uses a 5-year average of all those costs. It's really 7 years, but we throw out the high year and the low year. The other increase in this division is their cash funding of city traffic features. That's a capital project they have. The county is obligated to provide traffic engineering services to the city of Rochester. And this particular capital project provides the mechanism for identifying engineering costs for specific city projects and the financial means to reimburse the city for the replacement and upgrading of intersection signals and traffic signs. Given the number of city projects that are currently underway or soon upcoming, the Division of Highway and Bridge Operations has a need to increase its cash capital contributions by $600,000 next year to bring it to a total of $850,000. Going forward, after that, that annual funding will settle back a little bit lower. The last increase I'll comment on is within the Division of Highway and Bridge Engineering, almost second from the bottom. With all the highway lighting projects over the past 5 or 6 years, we've kind of shortened our contractual services and our supplies. For the 24 proposed budget, we'd like to add back about $150,000 for control maintenance agreements and RG&E services, specifically for knockdown repairs. We'd like to add another $175,000 in construction supplies, specifically for highway lighting. And on transportation's revenue side, it does look like DOT revenues are plummeting, but I did mention that 6.1 bond anticipation note that was an appropriation expense. It also had appropriated fund balance behind it as a revenue. So expense equals revenue. The budget for 2023 also included another fund balance appropriation that was our reserve for bonded debt, valued of about $2.6 million. Our reserve for bonded debt is excess bond proceeds that exist after a capital project is complete, and those excess bond proceeds can only be used for that particular capital fund's debt service going forward. Lastly, I'll comment 2023 revenues included $1 million of appropriated fund balance from within the road fund itself, used to offset the needed general fund transfer in the 23 budget. So we use road fund balance to support its own operations to alleviate some of the burden the general fund provides in its cash transfer. The last little bit of transportation expenses related to this committee is our contribution to RGRTA. I think many of you know we're required by state law to provide financial assistance to our bus company for their operating costs. Article 2 of Section 18B from New York State Transportation mandates that level of assistance, and we provide that on a quarterly basis. So, Mr. Chairman, that really concludes. Happy to get back to the table and take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin. Continue to get situated. Now I'll open the floor to any members who have questions regarding the transportation portion of the budget. That's Legislator Cole.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think you alluded to some of my questions in your presentation. That's scary that our minds is like. So most of the budget, what percentage of the transportation budget is mandated versus non-mandated? I think you alluded to that in your answer.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Chairman. Don't bring that information to these meetings. Provide that as follow-up prior to the Ways and Means Committee.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman, can you provide the legislators with a breakdown of all positions that fall under this portion of the budget that are authorized and funded and vacant? The breakdown should include titles.
Mr. Chairman, towards the back of the budget book, you can find all the authorized positions for this department. You can also find a salary schedule in the back of the book. So it's a little cumbersome, but you can match up each position to find their corresponding pay rates. Generally do not share historically details regarding vacancies because they are point-in-time data and soon obsolete, and for some other reasons explained. I'm not going to go into again for another committee.
Through the chairman, the 2023 budget proposed objectives of 157 line miles of highway being sealed, resurfaced, rehab. But the 24, we only list 100 miles under major accomplishment. Why is there such a large difference?
Through the chair, our mantra is pretty much doing the proper treatment and the proper road at the proper time. Various treatments have various different costs with them. For example, oil and stone is the cheapest treatment as opposed to mill and resurface, which is the most expensive treatment. So based on the needs of the road in any given individual year, that's going to determine the amount of lane miles we're able to do.
I would, through you, Mr. Chairman, are we getting ahead or behind on the schedule maintenance is predicted by engineers or what should be done?
Through the chair, we're pretty much maintaining status quo.
Thank you. Regarding expressway lighting. I've seen there's a lot of lights that aren't lit. What is the general reason for these outages and where are they located all over?
I'm sorry, could you please repeat the question?
Regarding lighting, how many lights and what percentage of the light poles remain unlit? And where generally are all these outages located?
Through the chair, a majority of them are on Route 390 because we have a project going on there right now.
On page 335, performance measurement. Lane miles resurfacing is reduced based on reduction for the need of this work. Here, I got it.
Through the chair, yes, same answer.
On through the chair on page 324, what accounts for the reduction in traffic operations permits? As such, traffic engineering operation is related to a large loop drop in debt. I think you already referred to that in your presentation.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. Predominantly, that debt reduction more than encompasses this reduction on page 324.
Is there an increase in the federal aid going on, or is it a one-time increase?
We'll have to tag team on the answer. Federal aid to DOT really is for our signal system network, which is increasing by 575 grand, but we need tag teams this one time.
Through the chair will be asked in the future, which is not guaranteed yet.
You ask for it every year, but it's not guaranteed. Is that the answer?
Through the chair, yes. It's based on available funds through the fund that were funded and the needs of other agencies.
Oh, yeah, against that one. Through the chair on page 334, the 2022 appropriation fund balance for the Highway Bridge Engineering Division was $282K. For 2023. It's just 489.7, and now the proposed budget is for just 106 for 2024. Can you explain the shift of the funds going up and down?
All explainable, Mr. Chairman. This would be appropriate fund balance specifically tied to our reserve for bonded debt.
Through the chair on page 554, regards to salaries, why do salaries increase 20K? I assume.
Mr. Chairman, for the administration division of DOT, it's all related to contractually obligated paying staff increases.
I see there's a clothing increase of 20,000. What is being purchased?
New this year, Mr. Chairman, is DOT is going to budget the department-wide needs in the admin rather than prior years. We had, you would have seen budgets in each of the divisions. So this is primarily the workflows that the staff needs.
So just move to a new line item.
You'll find some clothing in other divisions, small dollar amounts, Mr. Chairman. A lot of that, however, is related to like, the personal protective equipment, that hard hat.
Why does the law enforcement safety supplies increase by 4.5K? Mr. Chair.
Again, Mr. Chairman, same concept, the Transportation Department would like to aggregate all the department safety gear into the admin division rather than try and split it out. There's been reorganizations in my 10 years, there's probably been 3 or 4 reorganizations of DOT, and probably just easier to manage.
And through the chair on page 555, which is the new, there is a new fleet center facility line item. What is that for?
So we have Mr. Chairman, a shared fleet facility at the end of the runway here on Paul Road, 145 Paul Road. Environmental Services occupies, transportation, the airport, the sheriff. Is there. So new last year was aggregating the cost of having a facility, just like we aggregate the cost of having county office building. So we treat it like a building, we aggregate the shared cost and then allocate those shared costs amongst the residing departments.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, then you're just doing it a different way now to show the cost related to the departments?
Sorry, yes, Mr. Chairman, again, we're aggregating the department shared cost in the admin.
Thank you. I'll yield the floor.
Legislator Howell.
Thank you. Through the chair to the administration, now on page 556, looking at that page line, the salary increase by about $100,000. Please.
There is, Mr. Chairman, the addition of 1 FTE to traffic operations and permits, but the bulk of this increase is tied to contract pay and staff increases.
All right, thank you. And continuing on then, commercial services about a third of the way down. Looks like that is almost double. Also,
This is really related, Mr. Chairman, to the increased cost for crosswalk markings, work that used to be performed by the towns, and it's more expensive epoxy-based thermal something. Okay, epoxy marking crosswalk, thermoplastics crosswalk markings, that actually increased about $100,000 in this budget. And again, a lot of these were previously maintained by the towns that DOT will now be taking responsibility for.
out of curiosity, are they more durable, more reflective? Thermoplastics?
Through the chair, the epoxy is more durable than paint, let's say, so it costs a little bit more, but less.
My colleague just asked, is that county and town roads?
Through the chair is county.
All right, just following on a little further down the page, looks like we have office supplies going from 50 to over $11,000.
I have a note on that, Mr. Chairman. A lot of these are silk screen supplies, and the increase is for a drying rack. It's replacing the existing drying rack, which is over 50 years old. It had been replaced 20 years ago.
Thank you. And construction supplies increasing by about $200,000.
There's a couple of increases there, Mr. Chairman. This budget line includes sign fabrication supplies. We make all our own road signs here. There's $860,000 for pavement marking supplies, and that's for the city, county, and the towns. It's about a $200,000 increase over this year's budget.
All right, thank you. And continuing now on page 558. Commercial services line, decreasing by about 1.3 million.
The decrease, Mr. Chairman, really is related to, lower or fewer or smaller CHIPS projects.
What projects are those?
CHIPS projects, Mr. Chairman?
And again, a salary increase. 1,000.
This increase, Mr. Chairman, is all related to contract pay and step increases.
Yeah. Have a principal loan increase of 500,000.
All related, Mr. Chairman, to, projects already authorized by the legislature in prior years that we have now bonded for.
You. And now looking on page 560, again, we have a salary increase.
This division, traffic signal engineering and operations, Mr. Chair, did pick up 1.5 FTEs, but again, the bulk of this increase is contract pay and step increases.
I won't tell you how many times I've looked at temp help and read temp help. Appropriate, but why is the temp help line eliminated in previous years?
Well, we did have a retired individual who had come back for a while as a part-timer and, has retired for good.
And commercial services increasing by 170K.
Well, there are some specific increases here, Mr. Chairman. I know traffic control center ceiling and striping, we have our talk over on Scottsville Road, so new ceiling and striping of the lot. But I did mention in my presentation, additional funds, 100,000 for our maintenance agreements, and with RG&E for knockdown repairs.
All right, thank you. And to the professional services line now, which has tripled from 5,000 to 15.
It's tripling, Mr. Chair, makes it sound much more dramatic, but mathematically accurate. This is really the county match for phase 2 of our active transportation plan.
Last item on this page, construction supplies increased by 104,000.
So I did mention, Mr. Chair, in my presentation, this is a particular line where we would like to increase our highway letting supplies by $175,000. This is the only line for which DOT has for highway lighting repairs. And I think, as I mentioned, because of all the new projects, we've kind of shortened this budget in the past, and it's time to put those appropriations back.
Right, thank you. Now on to page 562, the Highway and Bridge Engineering. We have a temporary help increase.
Yep, Mr. Chair, we have a couple positions that had been previously vacant, but we're looking at 2 engineering aides to fill these part-time positions.
Thank you. Computer equipment has gone up from 0 to a little over 9,000.
So this one was interesting, a lot of acronyms from the transportation explanation. It's really, we have a long line mark, I'm gonna say this wrong. We have a long line marker that is controlled by a system that is well beyond its useful life. So, am I looking at the wrong line? Personal computers, large scale monitor for an AutoCAD system. So this particular $9,100 is a large scale monitor for the AutoCAD system.
Great, I yield the floor.
Legislator Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. First, I wanted to thank Director Price and his team for the work you've done for the last year over in our district. You've been a source of information as we start to plan for our 2024 solar eclipse in the district where the center line will be, and what that traffic impact would be. So we want to thank you. We also want to thank you and your team for listening to the residents out in my community when it came to the sidewalk on East Ave. The crosswalk to get to the sidewalk for that subdivision. Not only was it a safety concern for many of the residents with family, but it also allows them to actually get to the sidewalk that takes them to our local library and also to the village of Rockport. So I greatly appreciate that, and I know our residents do as well. So thank you.
Through the chair, thank you very much for saying so.
So on to the questions, through the chair to the administration on page 324, why is there such a drastic decrease in appropriated fund balance?
Mr. Chairman, the dramatic decrease in appropriated fund balance is tied to a couple items that I probably mentioned in different spots in my presentation. Last year, actually this year, 2023, it was over $9.7 million. It consisted of our $6.1 million bond anticipation note that was fully redeemed and supported by available dollars in the debt service fund. It also included a $2.6 million use of our reserve for bonded debt. And as I mentioned in the presentation, we used $1 million of road funds fund balance to offset the need for the additional general fund transfer.
Thank you. Through the chair to the administration, on page 684, fund balance decrease from zero, actually increases, or it goes decreases to zero from $1 million from last year. Can you explain why?
That was the $1 million we used last year to offset the general fund transfer. And we're not repeating that in 24 requests.
Perfect. And staying on the same page of 684, through the chair to the administration, transfer from the general fund increases about 3 to 4 million. Can you explain why?
Yeah, that's right, Mr. Chairman. Overall, I mean, transportation is funded in a lot of means through federal aid, state aid. But beyond that, the department is tax supported. So this represents the amount of tax support. We show it as a general fund transfer. We don't put tax revenue directly in departments or operating funds. We show it as a general fund transfer.
So going to page 685 through the chair to the administration, I see we went from 2 million to 0 in the F balance, RBD fund balance. And then also in the line charges to capital funds dropped from 60,000 to 0. Can you explain why both of those went down too?
The reserve for bonded debt is fully dependent upon the excess bond proceeds that are reserved for DOT capital projects. So that has been used for traffic operations and permits division. Charges to capital funds is actually removed for 2024. We've had a number of discussions with transportation and environmental services and even Parks Department on their charge to capital funds. And a lot of that is payroll related. The payroll is already budgeted in the fund. I don't need to transfer that to capital funds. There are some exceptions. I'm not sure if transportation is one of those exceptions where the state will actually reimburse us the dollar spent, plus a little more for overhead. So that's an example where we make an exception to the rule and we transfer those.
Thank you. Through the chair to the administration on page 686, in the insurance recoveries, we see that doubled for 2024.
It has, Mr. Chairman, and we do look back in time and for the past couple of years, I mean, we show 22 actuals on this page, we don't show prior. Not gonna lie, there's pretty good variation from year to year. But the $10,000 budget for 23 turns out maybe a little low. So we're increasing it to 25,000.
Thank you. Through the chair to the administration on page 687, we see the fund balance went to 0. It was about 6.1 million. Is there an explanation?
That was the fund balance we used from debt service for that full bond redemption.
Then we also see the federal aid doubled.
That is right. And that is what we discussed, the $575,000 increase for the signal system network.
Thank you. I have one other question through the chair to the administration. You had discussed page 3 on your slide. Can you explain that slide one more time when you were up there?
Page 3, that's our contribution to, RGRTA. It's required by law. State kicks in money and we have to, match it with a certain percentage. I don't know why we don't budget for that in the transportation department. It's my knowledge, well, at least in my tenure here, it's been budgeted and finance unallocated. So we flip to the section of the budget book that's labeled finance unallocated. We may not call it out, we used to call it out. But you will see it probably called out as an appropriation. Toward the back of the book, page 4. Seven. 428 for contributions, page 428, not quite halfway down. Contribution, RTRTA, $3.5 million.
Through the chair to the administration, does that include the funds that go to RTF?
Yes, it does. We just call it the Western Density Regional Transportation Authority, but they run the bus company, so.
So that the entire amount goes to RTS?
That I can't say. I mean, I'm not a.
I yield. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Administration, what I'm curious, how does that?
Yeah, there's no separate funding stream, Mr. Chairman. It's really just part and parcel to transportation's costs, just like off the flies would be. So I guess it's really funded by their revenues and the tax support.
Thank you, that's all I need.
Legislator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through administration, first, I want to thank the transportation department for what they do. It's one of those things that you don't think about when you're on things that happen, like in Los Angeles and Philadelphia. We know that highways and bridges have to be safe, and when they're not, they can cost a lot. My question is based on the major accomplishments, and then I'm proud to see that you work with the city of Rochester on the safety action plan. In over 400 months crosswalk locations. My question is, in the towns such as Rockport, Fairport, and Brighton, do you have a similar program for the counties who work with sidewalks to make them safer? And in conjunction with that, with the high accident location program that you're still in the implementation stage, if there are locations that are identified that are high pedestrian areas, how do you
Through the chair, we do work with the towns. If they put in a request for a crosswalk, we will investigate for them, do traffic studies appropriately. Regarding sidewalks and active transportation, that more or less needs a consultant so that we can design, get survey, obtain right of way, do the environmental studies. So I'm only really allowed to put in sidewalk as part of a capital improvement project. If it's just a maintenance project, I don't have the ability because I don't have the survey, I don't have the consultant on board to give me all the information I need.
I have one question to the administration. Now, Mr. Franklin, you had mentioned in your budget presentation, and I missed the figures, but the county funding for engineering services for city projects, is that dollar amount, is that the tracking of in-house engineering costs, or is that for
engineering that's contracting out on behalf of the city. Right?
So it is a capital fund, it's a capital transfer, but I'll let the director tag team on that answer.
Yes, basically, it's our costs, so they're through the chair, it's our costs that are associated with the city projects.
And then I apologize, I didn't write down quick enough. What was the figure again? Either the increase or the numbers that you.
The total cash contribution this year will be $850,000. That's an increase from the original budget of $250. So it's a $600,000 increase. It'll pull back a little bit in 25.
Any other questions?
Right, well, thank you again, Mr. Franklin and members of the administration for your responses in the presentation. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. You have the September 26, 2023 minutes before you. They'll stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day or evening. Next item on the agenda is new business, Mr. Clerk.
Referral number 23-0392, authorize the alteration of Monroe County traffic safety signal and fiber systems by the New York State Department of Transportation during the NY Route 104 from Lake Avenue to Culver Road project in the city of Rochester.
Moved by legislator Colby, second by legislator Keller. Any discussion? Question, please. All those in favor, I'm sorry, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Next item.
Referral number 23-0393, authorize a traffic signal agreement with Wegmans Food Markets to perform traffic signal operation and maintenance services for traffic signal number 225 located in the intersection of Calkins Road and Fair Avenue / Lavender Circle in the town of Henrietta.
Moved by legislator Keller, second by legislator Smith. Any discussion? So noted. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Item carried. Are there any other matters to come before this committee? There being no other matters, a November 28th, 2023 meeting of the Transportation Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Transportation Committee will be announced.